Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's public forum on the Shared Services Regionalization Feasibility Study, which is being conducted for the school districts of Greenbrook, Long Hill, Warren, Watchung, and Watchung Hills. My name is Bob Morrison. I'm a member of the Watchung Hills Board, and I'm chair of the Shared Services Regionalization Feasibility Study Committee. Tonight, we will share information about this feasibility study, including background, goals, timeline, potential outcomes, and answer questions you may have. Some housekeeping for this evening's session. First, we're using a webinar format, so attendees are muted. But if you have any questions, you may use the Q&A feature found at the top of the screen, and we'll attempt to answer most of the questions to the best of our ability. We've created a dedicated web page at the Watchung Hills website where we will house all of the information and documents regarding the study. It's listed on our homepage, and it's also under the Board of Education tab. And you'll see it right here where it says feasibility study on the website, or again, under the Board of Education tab. This session is being recorded and will be available for replay. The link will be on the Watchung Hills webpage I just mentioned. Tonight's session will feature presentations from Mark Magyar, who leads the Rowan School Regionalization Institute and is one of the authors of the new law that makes this study possible. He will be joined by Warren's own Kathy Helewa, who is leading the study for us. Interesting, Mr. Magyar has been a fixture in the Watchung Hills community, including having his children in the Long Hill schools and being active in the Watchung Hills Soccer Association as a soccer coach. And Kathy was a member of the Warren K-8 Board of Education, as well as a senior field services representative for the New Jersey School Boards Association. In addition, her children came through our local public school system. In addition to Kathy and Mark, on the project team, we also have Lucille Davey, who is the former Commissioner of Education, Ken Green, who is a professor at Columbia University and a former superintendent of schools, and Brian Falkowski, who's CEO of SBO Management and a former business administrator. And I know Mark will have more comments about the other team members as well. We've also established an advisory group of representatives that come from each of the boards of education and municipal councils from the communities that will oversee the project. Those members are from Watchung. We have Michael Bernberg, who is the Watchung Hills Board President, Manny Gonzalez, the Watchung President, Mohammed Frij, who is the Watchung Board of Education, Mayor Jubin from Watchung, and Council President Christine Ede from Watchung as well. Representing Warren, we have myself, Heather Trumpor, who is a member of our Watchung Hills Board of Education, Patricia Zahn, who is the president of the Warren Board of Ed, along with Natalie Feckbaum, who is also on the Warren Board of Ed, as well as Committeeman George Lazo from the Warren Township Committee. Representing Long Hill, we have Susan Ober from the Watchung Hills Board of Education, Ann Butler from the Long Hill Board, and Guy Perserchia, who is the mayor of Long Hill. Representing Greenbrook, we have Janine Potter from the Watchung Hills Board from Greenbrook, and Deputy Mayor Jim Benscooter. And then representing the administrations, we have Dr. Elizabeth Jewett, Superintendent of Watchung Hills, Mr. Tim Stiles, the Business Administrator at Watchung Hills, Dr. Julia Glazer, who is the Superintendent for Watchung, and Karen Bishop Johnson, who is the Business Administrator for Watchung as well. A complete list of everyone is on our website. So I wanted to start this evening by providing some context. Conversations about shared services and regionalization have gone on for decades in our community, with much speculation about the benefits or the downsides. Many of these discussions have been based on opinions and conjecture. A feasibility study will determine whether there are any merits to shared services or regionalization. And until recently, the only way to find out is that the districts and the taxpayers would have to pay for the cost. But recently, the state of New Jersey created an incentive program for school districts to conduct feasibility studies regarding shared services and regionalization. The main incentive is that the state is going to pay for it. Furthermore, Governor Murphy signed into law a bill that removes a lot of the barriers that existed to even considering such ideas as shared services or regionalization. Now, over the past 3 years, Watchung Hills, working with our colleagues at the Watchung Borough Board of Education, applied for a school regionalization efficiency program, or what's the acronym SREP, to fund such a study for our community. In late March of this year, our application was approved, and we received a $135,000 grant from the state to conduct the study we are discussing this evening. Now, there are two main reasons for consideration of shared services or regionalization. They are in priority order: to identify increased educational benefits to for our students, and to determine if there are potential efficiencies that would benefit the taxpayers. The feasibility study allows us to explore both of these items. Now, to be clear, this is not being done because of any specific need or any district is under financial stress or of any failure academically. We are fortunate to live in a community with high-performing schools. This study allows our districts to undergo a process that may unlock new knowledge and new opportunities to improve our schools for our students we serve through greater collaboration, efficiencies, and expanded educational opportunities for everyone. So, some final thoughts before I pass the baton on to our project leaders. First, there's no predetermined outcome. We have no idea what the study's results will be. However, we will have much more knowledge to share with the community about strengthening our educational programs at the end. Second, the study does not obligate any of the participating school districts to do anything other than cooperate with the study. We all support the collaboration required to conduct this study since the state is willing to pay for it. And conducting the study does not automatically lead to regionalization. It provides districts with information on the benefits and potential drawbacks of shared services and collaboration, up to and including full regionalization. The study will provide our districts with items like demographic studies, shared services considerations, and other efficiencies that prior to now, districts would have to pay for themselves. And as a Board of Education member, we do not even have the authority to decide to regionalize. Any decision about regionalization will be made, as it should be, by a vote of the taxpayers. And lastly, the benefits of the study may include benefits to the taxpayers, potential benefits including healthcare savings, special services, administrative cost savings, facilities management, and efficiencies that may occur when several districts work together, information we can only uncover through the implementation of a feasibility study. And most importantly, and this is why we have a former commissioner of education on our team, the benefits of any shared services or regionalization should include improvements to the education quality for our students. A feasibility study will help everyone understand what those improvements may be. Now, as most of you know all too well, we spend a lot of money on our property taxes. And as a result, it's important to understand where those taxes actually go. And so I just wanted to share with you real briefly that 18% of your property tax bill goes to the county of where we reside, and 17% goes to support the municipality operations. The rest of it, 65%, that goes to K-12 funding. And as duly elected representatives of our communities, we have a responsibility, indeed an obligation, to explore all avenues that could improve education for our students and to be the good stewards of the hard-earned taxpayer dollars we're responsible for managing. And that's precisely what we are doing through this project. Now, it's my pleasure to turn the program over to the man who made all of this possible, Mr. Mark Magyar, who is the head of the Rowan School Regionalization Institute. Mark, take it away.
Thank you very much, Bob. The state of New Jersey, can flip to the next slide. The the state of New Jersey has like always had a LEAP grant program going back about 15 years. LEAP grants were used by counties and municipalities, occasionally school districts, to conduct studies on shared services. A consolidation of, for example, the Morris County jail with Sussex, where the county is sharing jail space, was studied through a LEAP grant study. Um, on New Jersey with like over 570 school districts. It, in a state you can drive end to end in 2.5 hours. Did not do any school regionalizations to speak of for about a 30-year period, because the old school regionalization law really should have been named the law to prevent school regionalization. It was something that required contained no protections for teachers and staff. If a school district regionalized, the state education commissioner appointed an interim board. There were all sorts of restrictions like how you could actually regionalize. In 2013, the South Hunterdon School District regionalized. We have recognized that we needed to change the law, and we needed to provide grants that would provide for studies of how to do regionalization, and or how to improve shared services to provide educational improvements. One of the key impetuses for this was a belief that a coordinated K through 12 curriculum is good for our students. There are also districts in the state, which is not the case here, in the Watchung Hills district. There were districts in the state that were just too small to continue, and we felt that we needed to provide funding to enable them to look at our regionalization. We spent about 2 years working on the legislation. When it went through, it went through unanimously with Democratic and Republican support, the Democratic and Republican sponsors, and with full input from the School Boards Association, the Jersey Education Association. Every conceivable education group got to a comment on the legislation and agreed that this was the best way to move forward. So from that standpoint, we created as part of the legislation, we expanded the existing LEAP grant program, which was already providing grants to some school districts for regionalization and or shared services studies, to create create a 100% state funded regionalization and shared services grants. The School Regionalization Efficiency Program, in the view of state officials, it is not only the recommendations that are pursued, but that we will learn a lot as we do the studies. There are specific requirements under the law for these studies. First of all, we'd always felt that we needed to put education first. The real focus is on enrichment of like educational programs for our students, and looking at how we can provide a curriculum, better curriculum coordination. One of the advantages of larger districts is is the ability to share services. The studies provide districts with free studies of their current and projected staffing needs and costs. Takes a look at the salaries and in terms of a condition under the various collective bargaining agreements that are in place throughout the districts. One of the most important things that it provides for school districts is a free demographic study. Looks at enrollment trends, demographic changes in the student population, projected changes in class size, the ability of what is the capacity and facilities to handle demographic changes. This is more and more important as New Jersey's been taking a leadership role on a national level in the expansion of preschool. It also requires us to do projections of state aid and state aid for 5 years out, tax revenue projections. We look at cost sharing methods of apportionment and potential cost savings like increases, allocations of existing school debt, as I mentioned earlier, facility utilization. If regionalization goes forward, if at some point the district decides to pursue a regionalization, we put together regionalization options for a governance and for a cost sharing. It'd be considered by the advisory committee and by voters. It provides us with it'll provide the district with various options, and we provide a menu of options in the studies. The SREF recommendations themselves, they're comprehensive. We provide a range of recommendations that can be looked at in a whole or in part. You could be looking at a regionalization. You could be looking at ways to share particular services or to regionalize services, such as special education. There are various options that will be in the reports, and we'll also look like educational improvements and efficiencies. One of the things is that the Watchung Hills School District obviously is its member districts, Warren, Long Hill, Greenbrook, and Watchung are good, high achieving districts. That being said, having a fresh look from the outside is always helpful, and we have a pretty good team to do it. The other thing that's important to recognize, one of the things that Bob talked about earlier in the meeting was the broadly representative advisory committee that is being put together. The advisory committee works with us over the months ahead to help us shape the studies and to decide where to focus. Also, I mean, there are districts that we have worked in where the board members have said, "Look, we just don't think the way we have a special education organized is the best way of doing it. Can you provide us real recommendations on a special education reorganization?" And in that district, that has become one of our major focuses. The other thing is that this is going to be a very public process. This is the first video town hall meeting. We want to get ideas from the public. parents, uh, uh, who have kids in the school, from teachers on what we should be looking at. And then finally, just to put this in perspective on the program, within a year after the passage of the bill, voters in Henry Hudson, Atlantic Highlands, and Highlands created the first new coordinated pre-K to 12 school district in the state in a couple of decades. It was the first school regionalization of like any kind in 10 years. Henry Hudson, Atlantic Highlands, and Highlands are very different from Watchung Hills. One size that does not fit all on these studies. Altogether, the three districts have us 750 students, which would be smaller than a Greenbrook, but it provided real option, provided a real option that voters in those towns felt that made sense. Other districts we're working in may choose to just like implement a specific shared services recommendations as part of any regionalization study. We provide recommendations in a wide range of like educational areas, and the district may decide to move forward just on a couple of specific recommendations. Just to put it in perspective, our group, Kathy Helewa, we're lucky to have Kathy, who's a former Warren School board member who knows your town and knows your district. I know your athletic fields from like having coached in the Watchung Hills Soccer Association. But again, we know the area. Ken Green, a former superintendent up in Newton, and a professor at Columbia, will be working directly on the study. Lucille Davey, the former education commissioner, will be doing the legal and governance section. Brian Falkowski will be working on the finance section, and George Sundell will be doing the demographic study. But one of our advantages is we have put together the Rowan School Regionalization Institute. Most studies before passage of the legislation were being done by attorneys and by law firms. We wanted to put together a group out of the Rowan College of like Education that would clearly put education first and bring together top education professionals to conduct these studies. I would like to. I will answer questions at the end, obviously, but I'd like to turn over to Kathy Helewa from our team to talk about the study process. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you so much, Mark. And it is a delight to be with you all this evening and to sort of kick off what we're about to do, which is a marathon. It's not a sprint, but it's a very exciting process because really what we're looking at here in my hometown and our surrounding towns is all about optimization and making what is already surely in your opinion and mine as well, what is already an excellent educational product, and seeing where else we could possibly go with it. And this legislation and this process gives us an avenue for that. So it's really my joy to be able to serve my former Board of Education and my town and our surrounding towns and the district where my daughters went to school in this way, and to see what possibilities await. But again, I do want to continue to emphasize what Bob and what Mark have also emphasized, and that this is just an exploration of what is possible. We're not the decision makers here. That belongs to your constituents, to your voters. So along the way, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting and enlightening journey, and I'm very pleased to be a part of it. I'd just like to take a few moments in the next few slides to explain to you the areas that our group will be examining. There are 4 domains, so I'll walk you through them. And again, as Mark mentioned, we can take questions at the end. But in this domain where we examine governance and law, we will be looking at constitutional, statutory, and case law to see, what to be clear on what we can do and why. We'll also be looking at the election process and Board of Education composition. We'll examine the number of board members and the compositions of your current boards of education, and also what, if regionalization turns out to be the option that you go for, what that board might look like. What the apportionment will be as far as how the towns will be represented in the projected apportionment. We'll also take a dive into the CUSAC status of the districts in the cluster. CUSAC is the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum, and it's the method by which the state of New Jersey determines whether or not your districts are high performing. I think we'll see some pretty affirmative results in this area. No surprises here, but important to examine. And we will also look at what you are telling us. Stakeholder input is going to be a really robust part of this process. This tonight is just our first step, but you can expect to have student and parent survey data. We will be interviewing stakeholders in all of the districts. We'll be holding focus groups. We will be doing a lot of listening and a lot of recording. Recording as in, taking things down, noting it for the study, and putting those results out for the boards, for your constituents to all examine about what those trends are in student and parent opinion and concerns, and what your educational professionals' experiences are, and what their observations are that can help to guide us in our study and to help you all determine what the best decision will be for your students. So that's unique to every district, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what that's going to turn out in this particular study. Going forward. Okay, we'll also look at transition and implementation features for the various scenarios that our study will uncover. Our second, and also other political and legal issues that may arise and concerns that we need to be aware of. Those are different for every study, so we'll look forward to seeing what comes to the forefront on that. Our second domain is demography. Mark also mentioned in his remarks that we will be doing a demographics report. So you can expect to see community profiles in here, an overview of your community populations and distinguishing characteristics of those populations, and just a general context and birth data. If you've seen a demographic study, you're probably familiar with this. We'll also be looking at housing starts, current and approved developments, which certainly will be interesting in this particular area. I realize that. We will also look at enrollment history, trends over time, impact of choice, and charter enrollments. We don't have charter schools in our footprint, but we do have choice schools. And also charters, do not necessarily have to be within the footprint to attract enrollments from other districts. So we'll be looking at that. We'll also be looking at enrollment projections, which of course is a hallmark of any solid demographer study, and racial impact and other disaggregated enrollment impacts, all part of what we're going to be doing for you. Our next domain is education and program. This is really the heart of the study. So we will be doing a deep dive into the profiles of all of the school districts in the cluster. We'll be looking at your configurations, the number of schools, the grade levels in each school, the locations, and your existing send-receive regional relationships. We will also be looking at curriculum and instruction. We are excited to examine such a high quality array of offerings in these districts. We will be doing research. We will be talking to stakeholders and educational professionals and doing deep dives into what might be potential improvements in curriculum coordination, potential enrichment of educational programs, subjects, and course offerings, what might be opportunities for optimal class sizes, and structures and schedules for each of the core subjects. So again, this is going to be a pretty comprehensive report, and a substantial amount of work will be done on that. But we'll also be doing, as part of our study, looking at assessment results. That includes standardized assessment data, student growth data, internal assessments, our graduation rates, and our post-secondary rates, also dropout rates. We will look at also school culture and climate. Part of that is chronic absenteeism and discipline rates, also of great interest to us. And we'll also be looking at the programs for our most vulnerable students among us, our special education students, our intervention and referral services, commonly known as INRS, and our response to intervention structures in each of the districts, which is commonly known as RTI. We'll also be examining the experience of our English language learners. Those are called ELL students in the jargon, and other unique programs to each of your districts, how you serve your students. We'll also look at extracurricular activities. That's a huge part of the learning experience and the educational experience in our cluster. So we'll be looking at what each district offers, which students can partake in those offerings, and the timing of them. So that'll be a pretty robust part of the study as well. And we will also be looking at staffing, which is crucial. So we'll look at school staff information. Of course, we mentioned we'll be taking input from school staff, and we'll be looking at projected needs, administrative structures, district level personnel, and professional development. We'll also look at facilities like your libraries, technology access, and the length of the school day. So those are some other things that will be examined under education and program. A pretty comprehensive look. Finance and operations. Of course, we've mentioned that as responsible stewards of the school districts, you need to know where there could be potential savings. So we will be looking at state aid and local tax levies, state aid projections and trends, choice and charter impact, which I spoke about earlier, but this time from the financial side, local tax projections and trends, cost sharing opportunities, apportionment methods, equalized valuations, and enrollments. We will also be looking at operating expenses very closely, the budgetary costs and peer ranks, potential cost savings and increases for each of the districts. We will also be looking at debt allocation and your borrowing margin. We will be looking at collective bargaining agreements for all of the districts. We will be looking at shared services. This may yield some fruit here. We will examine what's going on now and what might be a good arrangement for you in whenever areas the study uncovers of your proposed regional districts. And we will also be looking at contracted services. So we'll look at student seat time, which means the travel time that students are actually sitting in the bus, right? And the distance that they'll be traveling. And what potential cost savings might we expect in transportation under the different structures that we'll be examining. We'll look at food service, and we'll look at other contracted services too, such as custodial and maintenance and things of that nature. We'll also, of course, be looking at tuition. We'll be looking at tuition rates, tuition cost, and adjustments as well. And reserves and tuition and maintenance and capital reserves as well. And facility utilization. Our next steps of the study of the process, so you can know what to expect as we go through this together, because this really is something of great interest to the community, and we'll have a fair amount of community involvement. We couldn't do it any other way. We are looking at a timeline beginning this month that will go through April or June of next year. And the first steps is to develop an outline of the proposed study with the steering committee that Bob identified at the beginning of our time together. Everyone from our partner districts will be working with us. We will also be, let's see, Bob, you have again, one that is something that we keep coming back to that's really important is that we will be communicating. We'll be communicating about our progress during the process, and we will be gathering input. We'll be starting over the summer with this, and we expect robust participation. And we are ready to listen, and we are ready to record and to digest. We are also looking to gather data relevant to the study that's already existing reading from public sources and district records. We'll be doing site visits to your school and to your district, so that will be ongoing. And we will also be, as mentioned, producing governance, legal, and demographic analyses. We will also, as just mentioned, be producing educational and programmatic and financial and operational analyses. And as a result of all of that work, ultimately, our group will make recommendations based on the analyses, and we'll review a draft with the steering committee prior to publication and produce a final document that will tie all of this work up into a systematic and easy to understand report for our constituents. And we will present those findings to the public and assist you in planting the next steps. But again, we are a resource for you. We are not the decision makers. We're just very pleased to be able to shepherd you through this process and to work on it as diligently as we plan to do. We can go to the next slide. I think that kind of does it for us. Yes, so we are going to open up our rest of our time together for questions from the group. You can use the Q&A feature, which was probably located towards the top of your screen. I don't see any questions in the Q&A location just now, but if anyone has any questions that they would like to pose to myself and Mark and our group and Bob, by all means, please do. We're also available to answer your questions that come up after you've watched this presentation, or as you talk about this with your colleagues, with your friends, with people in town. And if there's something that you need to know, you will find that information on the website that is right here, which is located on the Watchung Hills Regional School District page. I believe other districts will have a link to this page, to this landing site. We'll have frequently asked questions there, and you'll also have information as we progress through the study about what our steps are that we are currently undertaking and what we anticipate to be undertaking in the near future and over the long haul. We'll also have a video of tonight's session so you can replay it. And again, if that generates questions that you would like to ask us, by all means, use the email on the bottom, boe@whrhs.org, and those questions will be given to our group, and we will do our best to provide robust answers to them. I'm wondering if
you're bashful about putting something into the Q&A, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question that way. So we've got a great attendance here, and I know that there are not too many wallflowers attending this evening. So please, if you have any questions whatsoever, no question is unimportant. We want to make sure that anything that you have, that either we answer the question for you or that we get the information and share it with you after the fact. So,
Bob, your instincts are
Bob,
right on
we have
target.
a couple in there now.
Yeah, we do have some questions. So Bob, your antennas are working great. I will read them aloud because I know, Bob, you can't see them from your viewpoint. But our first question is directed to the group. How many of these studies is Rowan working on right now? Or maybe, do you know how many of them are being done in general right now in New Jersey?
I think that's a question that Mr. Magyar can answer both of those items.
Sure. There have been a number of studies that have been that are being done throughout the state. The Henry Hudson regionalization was done as following a LEAP grant funded study. The Rowan School Regionalization Institute. This is our fourth study that is currently that'll currently be underway. We are just finishing up a study with Dulce Regional down in Gloucester County. We're also working with Belvedere, and it's a Belvedere, which is a K through 12 up in Warren County, and 3 of its ascending districts. We also have a study underway with Sterling Regional in Camden County, which is a little bit like Watchung Hills in the sense that it's a 9 through 12 regional high school with actually with 5 school districts that send to it. 4 of which are K through 8, and then there's a K through 6 that sends its 7th and 8th graders to on one of the other K through 8s. We expect the state to approve studies for Central Regional down in Ocean County and with Walk Hill Regional up in Sussex. One of the things because I was involved in developing the legislation, I've been meeting on an ongoing basis with school districts around the state as they consider whether to move forward on a regionalization. And quite often, as in the case here, this has been a discussion that's been underway in Watchung Regional for several years. Many of these studies develop over a period of a couple of years before towns and districts decide to move forward on them. I would expect that by next year there'll probably be about 8 or 10 studies underway involving 20-some school districts, maybe 30 school districts around the state.
And Mark, if I might kind of piggyback to that question, I think, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think it's fair to say that since the legislation has been passed, as you mentioned, these studies are really picking up. And I've noticed that our group, and I think that really speaks a lot to your expertise and the expertise of our team, that we're getting more and more requests to look into this. And I think what's really beautiful about working with this group is that we're all immersed in public education and in student achievement, and that's our lens. So I think that's also an attractive feature for school districts, and just the fact that you can get such a deep dive into this type of research that really doesn't have the price tag attached to it. That without the legislation, I think it would be rather prohibitive for a lot of districts. Am I getting that right?
Yes, absolutely. And just one quick follow-up. Kathy is the lead investigator on this study. She is only doing this study as a lead investigator. One of the things that we do have the advantage that we can rely on the expertise across our entire team, but one person is the lead on each study, and we do not stretch our team thin by having them do more than one generally.
Yeah. And that kind of leads beautifully right into our a second question that was posed, which is, do we have a timeline or a schedule for the study? So again, this is we are not looking to get things done in a hurry. This has been a long time coming, so our aim is to get this done right for this district. And with that being said, we're beginning in this month. We're going to be spending most of the summer making appointments, talking to stakeholders, and also we're looking at an ending, if you can call it an ending date of April 2025, I believe. Mark, do I have that? And Bob, that sounds like a reasonable timetable for us to deliver the finished product, so that you can really discuss it with your boards and determine what what the results of the study will look like for the people who live in the Watchung Hills Regional School Cluster.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the process itself will probably culminate sometime within the second quarter of 2025. So that's why it's that April to June timeframe, April, May, June. But again, as Kathy said, we want to be thorough. This is not about being fast. This is about being right. So we're going to make sure we take the time to get the information, the proper information, share it with all the districts. And that said, as we're moving through the process, as different information begins to reveal itself, that information will be shared with the folks on the study team, and that could, certainly influence some of the thinking as far as budget preparation in future years. But as far as the big, final result of this work, it's really going to be the second quarter of 2025, that April to June timeframe.
Right.
Other questions?
Yeah, I don't see any other questions right now.
We'll give
Our last
everyone
question was
another
that one.
minute or so.
Yeah, our last question was the timeline one that was posed about 7 minutes ago. I think, but again, this is really, we do appreciate and thank you so much, Bob and Watchung Hills, for making this online forum available for everyone. I think it's really convenient. I think that the option for replay is a beautiful feature, and I would urge all of us who are on the call tonight to share this with interested constituents, with your neighbors who, who want to know what this means. We're really looking, again, but keep the word optimization in mind. We're looking at excellence in education here. That's the driving force behind this. And that landing page on the website will be a really good place for you to become familiar with, because the steps of the study and our timeline will, as it formulates, will be accessible to you over there. So if you don't have questions this evening, it's certainly, again, this is not a one and done. This is an ongoing process. I live in town. I'm your neighbor. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to engage with these conversations with you and with my team. So by all means, if please don't feel that if you don't have a question this evening, that the door has been closed. It is open. It will remain open. This is going to be an exciting and very participatory process.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Mark. And again, a replay will be posted on the website of tonight's session. It'll probably be up in the next 24 hours or so. The website URL is up on your screen there. It's under the Board of Education tab, but it is also has a button right there on the main homepage that you can see right there on the left-hand side. And if you have any questions whatsoever, concerns, ideas, thoughts, you can also use the email address voe@whrhs.org and send us your question. That mailbox is monitored, and you will get a prompt reply. We'll probably forward your question to the appropriate party to answer it, but we will certainly get back to you very quickly. Looks like we have one more question.
We do.
Bob,
Thank you so much, Bob. Yes, a participant who dropped off momentarily, but was able to get the question in before we close for the evening. And that question is, whatever the outcome of the process might be, what could the timeline be for implementation?
So I think that's, I think it depends, right? So there's going to be a lot of information that we have, shared services, those things can begin to be implemented depending on their complexity. They could start being implemented right away once the boards, agree that that's a direction that they want to go in together. So then it's a matter of then figuring out what's the timeline to do that, what is involved. Some things are going to be simpler than others. So say, for example, if there was a desire to regionalize just special education, right? So that all of the districts are collaborating on a single special education program together, that would take some time to research and collaborate and to put the structures in place. If it's something like transportation, doing something around shared services around transportation, that may be a little simpler to do. So it just depends on what the recommendation is, what the boards decide that they want to do, and then how they want to move forward. If it is something regarding regionalization itself, that has to be done by a vote by the public. So that has to go out to the public as a referendum. And that would, the timing on that would come out, again, I think if that's the direction, folks are heading, we would know more about that, as we get toward the end of the process with the final reports and presentations. So, some of the easy stuff could be done right away. The harder stuff is going to take a little bit more time. And if there is a recommendation to go to the public on full regionalization, that would require a vote by the public.
Thank you very much, Bob. And as we do, we did a lot until a few more minutes on this. We do have a participant who has their hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Oh,
participant.
I see that's, let me disable the microphone. Did that work?
Mhm.
Are you able to, Anthony, can you try to unmute the person with their hand raised?
Yes, it's there you go. She could speak now.
Thank you. Okay, feel free to
Go
ask
ahead.
your
I think
question.
this is our borough president from Watchung. Christine, you there?
I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Thank you so very much. I appreciate all of your time and all this information. I'm just curious, are all the sending districts up to date on all of their payments for their current enrollment of students? And how does that affect how the school operates and moving forward with a lot of the different decisions that are going to be discussed and considered?
Well, I mean, as far as I know, everybody is up to date on payments. But if there's something more specific, we can certainly have a sidebar conversation about that. But I think, I think all of our districts are updated on their payments.
Okay. Any further follow-up question or questions from our participants this evening? I think we might have something. I see something that says new posts. Um, we received a thank you for the answer on the timeline for implementation and a follow-up that's just notes. So this could be, so it says, so this could be years out into the 2030s, into the year 2030, if the recommendations are broader reaching.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that they would be that far out. Again, if we're talking 2025, if we were going to regionalize, if we were going to regionalize something like special education services, that would probably take a year of planning before they then work toward implementation. So we're talking a few years. We're not talking 5 years. I think the harder things will take a year or two. The simpler things, people will be able to implement right away. I think at the end of the day, it'll be dependent upon what the study itself reveals, and then based on that, what the districts look at and determine that they want to collaborate on or not collaborate on, or which direction they want to go. Which is, again, this is going to be a very organic and iterative process. There's no preconceived outcomes. We're going to go where the information takes us, and we're going to bring that information back to the public, and that can then inform all of our discussions on how we can look to further enhance, improve, and increase the educational quality and programs that we're providing for all of our students across all of our districts.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Thank you. Wondering if there are
And
any
with anything
other
else?
questions? I don't see any. Mark, are you seeing any on your end?
No, that's it. At this point, I don't see any other hands raised or anything new in the Q&A. Thank you very much. This is, as we said, this is the this is the first stage in gathering up a public input and laying out the process. And it's not it's not the end. There will be other there'll be other forums. There'll be other in a person at and or virtual town halls. So this is it's important to get ideas. It's important to get ideas, and each of these studies that I asked earlier about with a question earlier on the number of studies. The studies are different based upon what the perspectives of the communities are, and what the perceived needs are, and that reshapes shapes what our studies look like. So thank you very much.
Great. Well, Mark, thank you. Kathy, thank you. We're so excited to be working with you and your entire team on this project together. We're really, really grateful for your time this evening. We want to thank all of you that are here, as well as all of you that will be watching this on the recording. Again, video replay will be available on the website. The website link is at the Watchung Hills website at the feasibility study button or under the Board of Education page. And if you have any questions whatsoever, you can email boe@whrhs.org. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening and hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend and enjoy your summer as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.